Good evening and welcome to the June 3rd regularly scheduled meeting of the Nacogdoches City Council. I'd like to ask Chad to lead us in prayer, please.
Join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, we come to you today, Lord, grateful for all the many blessings you've bestowed upon each of us individually and on our city as a whole, Lord. I ask that you be in our midst tonight. I ask you to be with our decisions. Help us to make decisions that would be honoring and glorifying to you, Lord. I ask that you be with the family and friends of Sherry Morgan and bless them and give them the peace that only you can give, Lord, and protect them from the grief that they're dealing with now, Lord. I ask all these things in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. If you'll stand for the pledges, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Okay, next item is open forum. We have two tonight, and first one will be Miss Douglas.
Well, I'm here to complain.
You can come up here and complain.
Talk loud enough.
You can come up here and you can come up here and complain. That way we got it on record.
Oh, okay.
Uh-huh.
My complaint tonight is my street. I live over on Cottonwood Street, and I have had a problem with that street for the longest. The city have always said they're gonna come and fix it. They'll patch it up, and in a month's time, it got those holes back in there. And the city tears it up a lot, because further down, people have like maybe a sewage problem, and when they go through that sewage problem, they just leave the street all bump and rough. If you come over there, you ought to see what I'm saying, it will tear your car up. So you have to go out one end, and I live on this end, but I have to go out the other end all the time. So I just wanted to see if they could do something about my street out there on Cottonwood.
Okay, all right. You can say what you want to. We can't answer back.
Oh, okay.
It's duly noted.
Yeah, I know, I'm on precinct 26.
Yes, ma'am, we know exactly where you are. It's duly noted, so
Okay.
we can't answer back, so
Okay,
this
I
is just your
understand. I
time.
appreciate that,
Okay.
that if my councilman would just get the message
Okay.
and come and see what I'm talking about.
Yes, ma'am.
Show some kind of consideration.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, we feel left out when they running for officer. We right there to vote them and try to keep them in. But once they get in, they don't do anything to help us.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
that's what my complaint is.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Minutes is up.
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you.
Thank you, Ms. Douglas.
Mr. Mayor, since I can't and y'all can't respond, I'll respond to you.
Okay.
City engineer is muted on this call,
Okay, all right,
so
okay.
we're aware of it.
Okay. All right, the next one is Jose. Okay, if you'll come up, please.
All right. Come on. All right.
My name's Jose Bahina. I'm originally from Conroe, Texas, but me and my wife and my children, we moved down here from Hurricane Harvey.
Okay.
But the problem is the violence that we have over there in the Eastwood Terrace apartment complex. It's the young generation is very disrespectful towards the elders. They leave trash out there. I know y'all seen the news and everything. You seen the murder just happen. I care about the children's minds. I care about their hearts, and I care about if they're going to be loved. And the most hurtful thing to see them bring that body out those woods. You know, that's very, very hurtful for a child. And then to see that those same guys that are there, they let off 30-some rounds. The same guys in the groups, there's not groups of 2 or 3. They're like 20, 30 people at a time. Totally disrespectful. They urinate on the same fence post that they just dropped down and bring the boy's body out. And that's the most horrible things we got. And I'm just coming to the city just to let y'all know that this is our problem. You know, we have to be great gardeners and learn how to cultivate these weeds out of the community. Because there's no way that those child should be able to see those images at a young age. Those are going to be a whole nother set of problems that we're going to have to deal with when that child gets up in that adolescent age. You know, the community and their environment is what molds them into the man or the woman they need to be. And all you see is pants sagging, you know, smoking weed, busting 40-ounce bottles on the ground, and just being totally disrespectful. One of my mentors, Miss Juanita Fowler, Miss Miley, she and my wife gave me the courage to come talk to you guys. Because a lot of people don't want to talk because they feel like they will be retaliated on. A lot of those elderly people over there, they are great pillars to the community. But how can they build a community when you have a virus in the neighborhood? They do not care. When I say they do not care, and Texas has the Open Carry Act, these kids have really big guns, you know? And I don't understand why they have them, but the thing is, they need to be weeded out of the community because it's going to destroy the next generation, They sell drugs and won't even buy those kids a football. I work hard at the chicken plant, you know? I buy those kids footballs. We go over there with Ms. Molly. We do the Easter egg hunts for those kids. We try. But you can't try when the majority of the people around you allows it. You know, it's not just that they're hanging out. They'll choose certain victims as far as mental capacity and debt. You know what I mean? And they would choose certain victims and infiltrate their home, and all of a sudden it's 20 or 30 people in and out, loud music, don't care, any random night, gunshots. And that's just, it just hurts to know. And to see those bigger cities go through the same thing, but Nacogdoches is different. You know, every one of y'all guys here, everyone in here is very different because we are the community. There's no such thing as trying to make a news station. No, we come here, we fix our own problems. You know, we fix our own problems. And don't turn a blind eye to anything because they're going to affect. Every generation is going to get worse. Those kids don't have nobody to look up to. And they're happy when they see me and my wife. They love seeing us because we don't make much, but it doesn't cost much to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich for a hungry child. Most of their mamas don't have the mental capacity. They just don't know how to cope with life. And then here you come with a slick talker with those drugs, and the child is the one who's affected by that. You know? The child has to go in there and look at the icebox. Ain't nothing in there. Mama sold the food stamps, something for weed. Or any type of drugs. That's hurtful. It's hurtful when you see those kids and they have their shirts ripped, torn, 3-4 days. You're like, dang. Won't nobody even wipe your face? Won't even wipe the sleep out your eyes? How's it 2 in the morning and y'all still around here walking around this apartment complex? Don't care. Some of them don't care because the slick talking drug dealers and the violent ones know how to manipulate their mind. But the children is the one that's going to be affected by everything. We have to nip it right here. You know, every gardener has to hate weeds. You know, every gardener has to hate weeds. And y'all are city council, we you guys crops. You know, y'all the best of us. That's why we voted you guys in. You know, you're the best of us. But the ones that really need the help is those children in both big apartments, both of them.
We know.
And I'm just thankful for you guys for listening. You know, this is my first time talking. I never talked in public before, you know, but I have the courage to come talk to you guys because y'all are my people. You know, you're my people. I see you guys at Walmart. Y'all my people.
Okay.
We might be at Walmart. We might be anywhere. Man, with Nacogdoches football coming up, I'm going to see you guys out there too. Because we are the community. Thanks.
Thank you,
Thank
Coach,
you.
very much. There you go. Okay, item 4, awards and recognitions. Ashley?
Good evening, Council. Ashley Morgan, Director of the Convention and Visitors Bureau. As Chad mentioned earlier, it is with deep sorrow and heartfelt gratitude that the Nacogdoches Convention and Visitors Bureau recognizes the life, service, and legacy of former Executive Director Sherry Morgan, who passed away on May 23, 2025. Sherry served the city of Nacogdoches from 2017 to 2023. Sherry dedicated herself fully to the promotion and enrichment of our community. Through her work at the CVB, she became a passionate ambassador for Nacogdoches, helping to share our city's unique history, culture, and hospitality with visitors from across Texas and beyond. Her leadership was marked by creativity, determination, and sincere love for the people and stories that make Nacogdoches so special. Sherry's impact will be felt for generations. Her work helped put Nacogdoches on the map, and her legacy lives in the vibrant tourism and cultural landscape she helped build. Under Sherry's leadership, the CVB team brought home numerous tourism awards and established Nacogdoches as a must-visit destination. The CVB extends our deepest condolences to her family, friends, and all those who were fortunate to know and work with her. We honor her memory and express our sincere appreciation for her outstanding contributions to the city of Nacogdoches. And on behalf of the CVB and the board, we would like to invite everyone here and anyone else to a celebration of life in Sherry's honor on Thursday, July 17th. It'll be at the Charles Bright Visitor Center from 5 to 7 p.m. We'll have some refreshments, and everyone will share memories of Sherry, and then we'll place a brick in her honor in the square. So thank you to council. I know many of you were familiar with Sherry and worked with her, and I know how badly she's missed, believe me. She was the one who hired me, and she was a mentor for me. So we share a last name. We weren't related, but I feel like in some ways she was a mentor and a family member for me.
Thank you very much, Ashley.
Oh, here's the invitation. If anybody would like to take a picture of that, I'll also be sending it in a mass email out to city employees and council. Please feel free to share this on your social network pages. Did you want to say anything?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that she really contributed. I just wanted to do a little more, that she really contributed to so much in our lives. And I don't know if anybody else wanted to say anything about her, but, she did so many events. She tried to bring events in, and was it her idea to do the bricks, or was that before?
No,
she
that's
came?
been happening for a long time,
For a
but
long
yeah,
time?
but I mean, Sherry definitely really pushed that out, and I think they really became more popular in the past few years.
Right.
The biggest thing that I felt that Sherry had an impact was during the pandemic. We had no idea what Nacogdoches was going to look like a year from then, and she came up with that campaign, We Bend Not Break, and we got signs made, and nurses put them in front of hospitals, and people made T-shirts for them, and we really didn't know if tourism would exist, and there were times that I was fearful that I wouldn't have a job anymore, and she comforted me and made the entire staff feel like we had something to contribute, even if the world was paused at that moment.
So I know she's not here, but I'd just like to clap for her. So
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
all right.
Alrighty, on to a more cheerful note. Councilman Bellinger asked me to recognize a local couple who utilized our brick fundraiser to propose. And so I'd like to invite Henry and Annika to come up here with me. I think it would be nice for everyone to see y'all. Y'all can stand right here. So on November 30th, 2024, Henry proposed to his now fiancee, Annika, spoiler alert, she said yes, on the downtown square. As you can see in the pictures, it was Christmas time, which is really sweet. And so he got a brick made that said, "Will you marry me?" It says her name right, Annika, yes. And then once she said yes and confirmed, they placed a brick that says yes next to it. So just a little bit of background information. Henry and Annika met in Nacogdoches, and they will tie the knot on February 7th at Millard's Crossing Historic Village, which I absolutely love that they're picking such a quintessential Nacogdoches location to get married. So on behalf of the CVB, we congratulate the happy couple for making Nacogdoches a part of their beautiful story.
Great.
Thank Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ashley. Okay, next item is consent agenda, items to be removed from the consent agenda.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
A second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. On to the regular agenda. Item 7A, receive a presentation from the Goodman Corporation regarding an update on the downtown project planning, development, funding, and implementation. Mike?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Mike New, Executive Director of Development and Infrastructure. Tonight's item is an update on the progress of our downtown implementation strategy. If you'll recall, in February of '25, just a few short months ago, Council awarded a contract to the Goodman Corporation as a consultant to help facilitate some data collection, some analysis, to capture some feedback from various stakeholders on a number of strategies for downtown improvements. In particular, the scope included identification of funding opportunities, further development of strategic projects, which you'll hear from in a minute, analysis of that's critical for defining downtown parking needs, and then additional documentation that may be critical for future funding pursuits, particularly federal funding, possibly state funding opportunities. So we're about halfway. We're creeping into month 4 of what we considered a 6-month endeavor, and I have the principal of the Goodman Corporation, Elizabeth Witten, here to talk to you about some of our progress. So I'll leave it to her.
Good evening. Good, I was worried about the clicker. So let's move on here. So it's good to see you guys again. I'm going to start by just kind of refreshing like what our scope is and kind of walk through what each piece is here. So we've got a 5-task scope of work. Task 1 is your project management coordination piece. Task 2 was kind of looking at all of the work that had previously been done. We knew you'd done a lot of work. We wanted to make sure what we did is advancing that work. So looked at all of that, wrote a memo. It is posted on the city website for this effort. Task 3 is our parking task, and that's a lot of what I'm going to talk about here today. Task 4 is where we take these strategic projects and then build out the development and the funding strategy. And that's a lot of what we're working on right now and then leading into the next couple of months before we present back the final strategy to you guys. And then task 5 is prepare and submit 2 grant applications. I'll talk about that at the end of the presentation. And then we are in the middle of a bunch of stakeholder engagement. And so we meet with the Downtown Technical Advisory Committee. We're doing some individual interviews with some stakeholders. And then we are launching an online survey, and there are public comment cards here with the survey information. And so I'll talk about that later as well. So like Mike said, we're entering month 4, so presenting to City Council. And then we will be working to kind of finalize everything June, July, and then back to you guys in August. So kind of our updates by task. Task 2 is complete. It's the first thing that we really worked on. This information is on the city website, but we essentially outlined what are the strategic projects. It's the parking facility, it's amenitization of Festival Park, it's looking at Bonita Creek promenade or amenities there, and then the highest and best use of public buildings. Task 3 is parking, and that is what the next several set of slides are for. So what you see in front of you is the essentially boundary of our parking work. We know that downtown is more of a compact area, and so people will be willing to walk a few blocks. So that's our boundary. What you see shaded in purple is the potential location for a parking facility. It's also obviously tied to the former Regions Bank building, the future home of Elliott Electric. So that's what you see in front of you. We have developed all of this into a parking memo that is also published online, and we've completed our preliminary environmental assessment as well. So what is the parking details here in downtown? sure you guys have an idea, but here's the data to go along with that. So looking at parking supply and demand, we actually break things down by block. It's the best way to analyze it all. And we use what is the most acceptable way to do a parking analysis, and that's the Institute of Transportation Engineers' latest edition of the Trip Generation Manual. It's what pretty much every government across the country uses to determine parking, identifying parking minimums and maximums. So where is parking in downtown? So we identified and located every parking spot in downtown. So we categorize them as public, private, or assumed private because of lack of signage. So what you have is a total of 416 public parking spots and 734 private parking spots, and that equates to 1,150 parking spots in all of downtown. This is on street, this is private lots, we literally were going through and identifying what's handicap, what looks like a parking spot and potentially could have a car. If it had a car there, we did that. And then we actually even talked to people and say, do most people parallel park in here? Do they pull straight in, or do they do angle parking? So all of that is accommodated in this existing parking supply. So what's the demand? Well, on a weekday basis, you have about 1,150 spots here, and your demand is, kind of reading the little bit here, a little small, is 940. So how many public parking spots do you need to meet demand? You need 193 parking spots in order to meet the existing demand here in downtown Nacogdoches. So in the graphic here, green means there's a surplus, red means there is a lack of parking. So that's what you see on a weekday basis, so Monday through Friday. Then we looked at it on a Saturday, and things are a little bit more balanced on the weekends. So you tend to have more parking spaces than you need to meet demand. Of course, this is not considering special events like the Blueberry Festival, so don't necessarily assume that you'll have an extra 147 spots on June 14th. But on a typical Saturday, that's about what it shakes out to be. And then on Sunday, it's a little bit more heavily on the supply side than the demand side. And I think probably as you walk around, you probably see this as well. So that's the parking supply and demand. And so let me stop. Is there any questions on the supply and demand before I move off from graphics and the specific data pieces?
Does this include electric possibilities?
It does. It actually assumes full build out of that building.
Okay, thank you.
And it assumes that their lot currently is a private lot and would not be shared. So from an objective perspective, we don't want to make assumptions for anything in the future. So
Right.
we looked at what it is right now.
Could you also share, I already know the answer to the question, but I think it's helpful for people to know, why is it important for us to do this analysis, particularly when we're looking for funds or whatever?
Yeah, so the first thing you do when someone asks like, well, why do you need to spend resources, whether that be private resources or public resources, like going after grant funding or local funds, well, why do you need to use this money? What is the actual problem? And you use data to inform what is the actual problem. So on this chart, during the week, it is showing that you lack 193 parking spots to meet the current business's demand. And so what it's showing is you actually do have a parking problem and you need to potentially find 193 spots. So where can we add in another 193 spots to meet current businesses? And if future businesses want to locate to downtown, they're also going to need parking. And so that determines the demand and says, hey, we actually do need to spend these resources in order to have the economic growth that we want for these businesses to currently thrive, and then for additional businesses to come to downtown.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
So where are we going next with task 3? So we are in the middle of the geotechnical analysis. So if you were walking around the parking lot on Friday and a little bit on Monday, a crew was out here testing for geotechnical. We will have that report in the next few weeks. We need to do this analysis to determine how much of that site, we can actually use for a vertical structure if we would like to go vertical with a parking garage or a parking deck. So that'll help us figure that out. And then we will work to determine what is the potential demand, so like a high demand scenario. So right now, you, on a weekday basis, you need 193 spots. Well, if there's additional growth on, like, say, a medium level, how many additional spots above the 193 do you need? And then on a high growth model, what is the number of spots above the 193 that you need? So we want to make sure that whatever we're proposing will actually address those demand scenarios. So we don't want you to build a garage and then it already be at capacity, exactly.
So council, one thing I'd point out is with those build scenarios, that's as you get into the density or the highest and best use of the existing buildings that are already there. So under those different scenarios, and that wouldn't even get into non-peak potential additional uses, say, whether it was a sports facility or a mini Woodlands amphitheater at Festival Park, where hopefully you'd have a shared use opportunity where you're not actually, you wouldn't build to that. You build to your typical highest best use scenarios, maybe with a little wiggle room in there, a little bit above it, but you don't build every day for Blueberry Festival. That's kind of where I'm going with it.
Okay, let me ask you, does this include Elliott Electric being fully staffed?
It does,
Okay,
yes.
all right, okay.
That's why when you're there, like right now or at 4 o'clock today, you could find some parking spots. It's because there is not their full build out in that building. So
Right.
if at full build out, you will see a much,
So that
yeah.
193 includes them
Correct.
fully built out?
Correct,
Okay,
yes.
all
And their full build out in this model, I don't have the exact number in front of me, but it's about 100 to 120
Right.
parking spots. So we're.
Can I
yep,
stop you for
of
just a
course.
second? On that same line, if they're going to have 120 additional need, that means today we have a parking problem. Whether they build out fully or not, there is a problem today
Correct, yes.
for our regular weekday parking.
Correct. So if you were to remove them, you would still have several dozen you'll still have several dozen spots that you would need in order to meet the existing demand.
I was going to say, yes, like on a typical day, we have city staff parking at Elliott's lot right now, the old Regions Bank. So, and on some days, even other members of the public are parking there just because of the demand around the square around lunchtime. I guess your peak business hours. So I think it also, and I'm assuming, I don't know if you have their full, as part of their full build out, and I know Robert's here, but I think they're also adding another 10,000 square feet to the building in one building scenario. Is that correct, Robert? So that might even be a conservative estimate, is what I'm saying.
We tried to be very conservative with this model. It is a very conservative model.
Well, and just having talked through parking issues for a while, I know that there is an argument that there's not currently a parking issue, it's a convenience issue. And so this data is evidence that shows that it's not just, oh, I don't want to walk, or I want to get right in front of the building. There's actually a need for parking today.
Correct, throughout the entire downtown. Now, if you're looking at convenience by the blocks, there are some blocks that have more supply than they have demand, but there are several blocks that have a lot more demand than they have supply.
Thank you.
How much concern do we have for handicap parking for this?
You know, that is a great question, and I don't have that answer right off the top of my head, but I'd be happy to look into that. We have the number of handicap spots. It looks a little bit different, understanding, you have to look kind of like what are the business uses to understand the demand for the handicap spots per place. But I'd be happy to look back at that and get that to you.
That would be an area I'd be interested in.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So we're working to develop renderings of what does this look like. We really want to make sure it fits in with the character of downtown Nacogdoches. Putting a large concrete structure doesn't necessarily fit in with the character of the existing buildings here. So what does this kind of look like? We'll develop some graphic renderings of that and then work on cost estimates, which are very critical of what is this going to cost us, and then what are the financial pro formas associated with building this out. So task 4 is looking at essentially the other strategic projects we're looking at. And there's a map here. I've strategically included in these maps for Festival Park and Bonita Creek. There is a floodplain layer on those. So if you're wondering what the blue is, we really wanted to make sure we included that because it does impact what you can put in both locations. And then a map of the public land and buildings around downtown. So kind of where we are with this, and this is a lot of what we're working on kind of right now, and then looking in the months ahead, conducting research on kind of what could fit if it was a potential sports facility in Festival Park, potential partnering opportunities, what else would the community want to see in Festival Park, and making sure that we look at a site plan that really kind of aligns with where the community wants to go, but with also with what's feasible from an implementation perspective, because this is in the floodplain and you want to make sure that you're not investing a lot of resources in something that would have to be replaced, on a regular basis. And so that's something we're looking at, and that's actually going to be a big focus of our survey effort. And then for the amenitization of Bonita Creek, the creek is waters of the United States, so it does, while the land adjacent to it is owned by the city, the Army Corps of Engineers does have a significant say of what can be built there, and it does require certain levels of permitting. So we're looking at what is essentially feasible adjacent to a U.S. Army Corps of Engineers asset, and then what would the community want to see. So if it's like a trail, what does it connect to, and looking at those pieces, and that's something we're really looking at over the next, definitely right now, and then finalizing that in July.
So if, for example, in the surveying, if it comes back, hey, it would be really great to move the farmer's market closer to the creek, which theoretically might be, especially with the parking. However, it also may come back that, okay, the Army Corps would let us put benches, trees, sidewalks, but not actually build other things depending on what the floodway impact would be. So, and I think as you get closer to the creek, that's probably going to even be more so. The one difference with this versus the Woodlands Waterway is that was not a water of the U.S., but it was a drainage ditch, but it was not a water of the U.S.
Correct. That is not a U.S. Army Corps of Engineers asset. So that's the key difference between those projects. And I will say that one thing we're looking at for that project, for the Bonita Creek work, is where do you put it? So it might be that people would like to see a bench or a trail, but putting it further back from the creek is doable, but putting it close to the water and having this nice waterfront promenade, it's probably not going to work with the Corps, depending on what they say. So those are things we're looking at, and we want to make sure that whatever we propose is actually implementable, and we don't want to give you anything that is just dead in the water when we talk to the Corps.
So briefly, what are the constraints? Do they not want dredging? They don't want to have a creek walk, and so fill us in a little bit about the constraints.
I'm gonna keep this really high level because the answer, and I don't want to speak too much just yet because we're still working on this and coordinating with Rick and Mike on this. So dredging is obviously not something the U.S. Army Corps would like to see. So it really depends on what you're looking to do and the level of permitting. So multi-use trails, so those, if anyone has been in Houston and seen the Bayou Greenways Trail, those have a different type of permitting than if you're building something with structures in like the Addicks or Barker Reservoir in the Houston area, which are all controlled by the Corps. If you're building something near Galveston that has a structure but is adjacent to the bay, that has a different level of permitting. So it really is depending on what we propose and the level of permitting associated with that. So sometimes the Corps does allow for dredging for projects, but it really lengthens your permitting time, makes it much harder to do, and what we're really looking at is what can be implemented in a way that actually is aligned with where the community wants to go and the city would like to go.
I hate to oversimplify it, but having been in Kemah, Galveston twice, League City, okay, multiple hurricanes, all the above. Bottom line, it comes down to certain things when you get into the building code and then mate that to the floodplain you can and can't do. Or if you do build them, they have to be built in a certain way where they have to be, just for our purposes, even insurance purposes, built a certain way to be more robust. Part of it will probably hinge on to anything that doesn't increase the flow, meaning if we do build something within Festival Park, how are we offsetting that so it's got a neutral impact? And so they might be, it doesn't mean we couldn't do a raised berm with seating, kind of a mini Woodlands Pavilion or something, or a baseball field, but it would have to be engineered in a way where it is not going to negatively affect or substantially change the flow of the water of the U.S.
Correct, yes. And there are examples around the country with where this has worked out, so happy to provide those as well. And then looking at the public buildings, so we've been working on market research to look at what is the demand for new potential businesses in downtown. So this is getting at what we were talking about with demand for the parking facility, so building out these growth scenarios. So that this is looking at, well, what potentially could be coming? And so then tying that back into the potential demand scenarios for the parking facility. So we've done some market research. We've looked at kind of what are the right further buildings for this, and what are potential uses of this public land. And so this is something we'll be working with Rick and his team this month and next month on finalizing those. So that will be in our final report in August. And then task 5 was prepare and submit 2 grant applications. So we submitted 2 applications to Representative Sessions, FY26 Community Project Funding Appropriations, Call for Projects. You approved a resolution back in April for these 2 applications. One of them was a resubmit from the previous year, so we've actually, per our scope, we've really only submitted 1 grant application for the cost of that task. But we've actually submitted 2 for you guys. One was a request for the parking facility. We asked for $10 million through Representative Sessions' office. We still do not know for sure if that one has been published and moving forward with the Appropriations Subcommittee. And then the next one is the citywide drainage improvements. And can let Rick maybe announce something, but it was published today that one has been selected by Representative Sessions' office, so. The drainage piece.
I'd like to thank and commend Case and Mike and Elizabeth, whole staff. Initially, it came back that our submittal, due to some of the other tightening of some of the items in the rules, was possibly going to be excluded. And inside of 24 hours, they gathered additional data, made revisions, and then there it is. So, and then we're still waiting on the garage proper right now on that initial piece.
Yes, we're waiting for Representative Sessions to announce his specific projects. It was refreshing, and at 5 o'clock today, it popped up. So I was happy to see that. And then.
Okay, so do you mean, so we got approved for the drainage?
You did, as
Okay.
of today.
How
Yes.
much?
Oh, it's 3.2.
Okay, it doesn't matter, 3 point something. Can you call Pete now and ask him if we got this garage?
Okay.
Okay.
And the reason was, last year we submitted maybe we submitted the full project last year, we only got $1 million in the 25, but then when they reset everything, then even that went away that's why we had to resubmit the whole thing, so that it's not that it could it be reduced still at this point?
It could be.
That's, okay,
At
that's
the-
what
at
happened
the
last year.
national level.
And that is what happened last time.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's very good news. Thank you for letting me share that.
Thank you all.
And then moving on to our public engagement effort. So we have our third Downtown Technical Advisory Committee meeting on Thursday afternoon. And then we are conducting some individual interviews with people around town over the next several days. And then we have a survey that is now live, and it's actually 16 questions, but it's still a short survey, takes less than 5 minutes to complete. So if you have these cards, these postcards will be going out around town. There's a QR code, and the survey is also live on the city's website, and there's social media blast and all of that. So we're going to keep it open for a month. And then the input that we get will actually help us to find what are the specific things we really want to see in Festival Park and Bonita Creek, but also guidance for how you move forward with the highest and best use for those public buildings, and then some of the appetite around further demand for that parking facility. And then next steps, to necessarily come across here, but finalize the recommendations for all of these and put everything together into project profiles and a final report. Obviously, we'll analyze the public engagement efforts, both the committee, the individual stakeholder interviews, and the survey, and finalize those parking scenarios and put everything together into a full package for that parking facility and what needs to be the exact number of spaces, potential height of that facility as well, whether it's a 2-story or more stories than that. So, and then next time I present to you guys will be the final report. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Can you give a high-level overview of the drainage project, just to refresh our memories? Like where?
I can, but I could also let Mike handle that one.
She didn't have anything to do with it. She didn't have
Okay.
anything to do with it.
It's not, I don't want to steal the thunder here.
No, and I don't have the locations in front of me, but it's very similar to our bond requested drainage projects. We've identified, I think, 5 or 6 different locations that the funding through this request would actually supplement some of our bond funding, so we could actually expand our scope on some of the drainage improvements.
That's called leveraging, right?
It's leveraging, that's right.
Good.
So Patricia and Lavera is one that comes to mind that wasn't initially included within the bond scope,
Yes.
but can be added if these funds are appropriated and we actually secure this award. So it's an extension of what we're already doing with our bond drainage projects, many locations in all sections and wards of the city. So we can further refine that as it's part of this presentation, but we posted that application on the Downtown Technical Advisory Committee page as part of our Goodman memo, and I don't have those in front of me, but I know Patricia and Lavera is certainly one that was a highlight for that grouping, so.
And let me throw one at, from what I remember last year, we deliberately wrote it as it was to target investment in the southwest and southeast wards, particularly in low mod census tracts. That was where we targeted.
Yes.
So-
They're all low, moderate income census qualifying drainage projects.
Yes, we wanted that to be our focus with that.
I think Case may be chiming in. Casey there?
Yeah, I can actually list off the streets that were in
There you
that sheet, sitting here looking at it, but not off the top of my head, but just full disclosure. Hilltop Street, Woodbine, Stewart Street, Oak Creek Drive, and Cardinal Street and Creekview Bend were the other ones, aside from Patricia and Lavera that Mike mentioned. Those were all included in our bond drainage projects. We, like Mike said, we're trying to kind of free up some bond money by seeing if we could get those segments funded by the congressional appropriations. And so we'll still do that. That's, if we can get this funding, then we will definitely utilize that first for those projects, and then hopefully have some money freed up for other projects with the bond. But yes, Patricia and Lavera was that other one that was not part of the bond funding, like Mike said, but it was an important project that we wanted to try to get funded with this money.
And since this request has kind of gone through our Downtown Technical Advisory Committee and through our consultant's submission of the award, the details for this particular request are listed on our website the committee page, nactx.us/DTAC, Downtown Technical Advisory Committee. It's on there under the memos for community project funding requests, along with the parking garage, which we're going to cross our fingers, hope to hear from in the next couple of weeks. But it's all part of the larger drainage effort. We've got to do it in just about everywhere in the city. So this is how we get it done.
So when, like, in one of the last big rains, we had 100,000 gallons or whatever sewage spill. Is this addressing that, or is that other fish to fry?
This could contribute to that. It's not going to be the solution alone. We do have some infiltration in a lot of our sewer mains that once we replace those, of course, we've talked about some of our big interceptor projects. We fix that problem, that's going to contribute greatly to it. If we're diverting more of that runoff water into our streams as opposed to letting it soak or channel in its own direction, we certainly contribute to the solution.
Thanks.
Okay. Once you finish.
Any other questions? Speaking to the microphone, any other questions?
So as far as the survey goes, great survey, by the way. Would you like us to post it on our social media to the link, or would that not be appropriate?
No, I would encourage you to share it far and widely, or if there's anyone specific you'd like to take it, please reach out directly, or if you need information from us, we're happy to share that too.
And I can add to that. In fact, we just finalized the survey in preparation for this meeting, and I've reached out to our staff liaisons of all of our boards and commissions to share with those stakeholders. And each of them, I know certainly Tori Huddleston with Main Street Group has a network of a lot of different audiences that she'll share this with. So it's really just however you share information through your channels and your networks, please do so. We want to maximize participation community-wide.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Last time y'all were here, I asked a question. Do y'all think we can get there from here? And with the work you guys have done, look like we're going to be able to do that. And I appreciate each and every one of you's effort in doing so. Thank you.
Nope. Thank you, guys. We're trying it.
Thank you,
Well,
Elizabeth.
thank you guys very much.
Thank you. Okay. All right, next item is item 7B, consider approval of the amended zoning board of adjustment rules of procedure as directed by section 118-98A. Zoning, Article 2, Administration, Division 3, Board of Adjustment, Procedures of the City of Nacogdoches, Texas Code of Ordinances. Mike.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Mike New, Executive Director of Development and Infrastructure. This item is, like some others that you've seen in recent meetings, this is a continuation of our zoning ordinance subcommittee discussions with Councilmember Williams and Councilmember Mall, who have been able to participate in those. Our zoning board of adjustment had identified some potential updates and changes to their existing rules of procedure. Those were last approved, I think, in February of '24. Certainly, as we progress in action across the board, development-wise, and what we see in our planning office and what our board of adjustment sees before them as cases are brought to them, certainly triggers some discussion about how can we do it better, how can we be more effective, and how can the board work better as a unit to support council, to support the city and the community. So they identified some changes, and we've tossed around with our zoning ordinance subcommittee in January and February. And there were several changes identified, but we're also wanting to reflect changes that council has made already to the zoning ordinance, particularly in November and April, which identified some board of adjustment procedures to either comport with state law or to reflect the desires of council as the council sees fit. One of those in particular I've highlighted, that Section A was recently updated to reflect approval of city council specifically, to call that out. That is a reflection of what state law says, that the governing body does have a right to or should be approving rules of procedure generated by its board of adjustment. So wanted to be consistent with that and reflect that. But in addition to that, we're touching on a number of subjects within this proposed red line document. Selection of vice chair or identification of vice chair as well as acting chair to help facilitate meeting progress. Identifying the duties of the city planner and secretary within that scope, again, trying to reflect what's already changed and updated within the zoning ordinance, and of course, acknowledging council's authority, as I just mentioned. Others that I'll highlight in particular, and I can certainly answer questions if you have specific ones about the red lines, creating a distinction about what a supermajority vote would be required of the board versus a majority vote, and what those actions look like and how those would be distinguished. And then we've already reflected some changes that will help facilitate meeting progress by identifying executive session within every meeting agenda to allow the board, as needed, to seek legal consultation. It's a standard that we provide on council agendas, and as a quasi-judicial board, it made sense to include that if it's needed. Legal representation could be provided by our city attorney. Otherwise, the board had also requested, and is reflected within these rules of procedure, a way to select alternate members to sit in place of a vacated seat or an absent board member. So we did provide a specific procedure for that, and certainly it's council's discretion to approve that as part of these rules of procedure. But in addition to that, other things are simply kind of tightening things up within the language. We did remove the attachments, but a lot of that language is either reflected in the zoning ordinance or just consolidated within the document. And I'm happy to answer questions about anything that you've noticed in particular about these red lines.
Any questions, council?
We hashed most of this out in the committee.
We did. And it's actually, I'll speak to the committee again, and the efforts of not only our council members, but our ZBA members and our Planning and Zoning Commission members, because it's a good sandbox to work out if there's perceived issues or maybe questions about something, rather than try and air it out in these meetings, which is a little more formal. We get a chance to kind of chat and talk and really toss some ideas back and forth. So any tough issues that we've had to wrestle with have really been worked out through that discussion in that format. So it's been very helpful.
Are you ready for a motion?
Yes, ma'am.
I move that we approve item 7B as written.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. That concludes tonight's regularly scheduled meeting. We will now go into executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.074. We will convene into executive session now. Thank you very much for coming. Okay. We are returning from executive session at 6:42 pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.074.
Mayor, I would like to make a motion to ratify the appointment of Juan Paulette as city planner and Mike New as executive director of development and infrastructure.
Second.
I have a motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. That concludes this evening's meeting. Thank you very much for coming. God bless the great city of Nacogdoches, Texas.